And hi, everyone. Welcome to our USC Viterbi School of Engineering Faculty Roundtable series. My name is Paul Ledesma. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the Viterbi School of Engineering. It's my pleasure to host this event. Today's event is a faculty roundtable discussion all about biomedical engineering, the Biomedical Engineering Department at the USC Viterbi School. And we have four fantastic faculty members that are here to talk to you not only about themselves and about the courses they teach and the research they do, but to help explain what biomedical engineering is and help you understand what it's like at USC. Today's session is going to run essentially in two parts. I'm going to run the first half of the session where I'm going to lead these faculty through a discussion about the discipline in general about biomedical engineering. We're going to talk about curriculum, if we can get an overview of the undergraduate curriculum so you can understand that. We'll talk a little bit about research. We'll talk about courses that they teach and also their areas of research as well. And then we'll work and do a little bit about outcomes and where students end up after studying biomedical engineering at USC. After these questions, we're going to turn it over to you, and I'll let you know when it's time to ask your questions, but we'll let you all ask questions using the Q&A feature, and I will moderate those questions. Basically, whatever the most popular questions are, we'll answer those questions moving down because you all have a chance to upvote those questions. For the time being, please hold your questions. I'll let you know when it's time to ask your questions. If you get any questions in now, we're just going to dismiss them, so don't ask any questions for right now. I'll let you know. But without further ado, let's let the important people start to talk a little here. Let's let them introduce themselves. We'll start with Dr. Eun Ji Chung. Dr. Chung?
Yeah, hi everybody. It's great to be here. My name is Enji Chung, and I'm in biomedical engineering, and I've been at USC a little over 5 years, and I also run a lab. And our lab's research focus is in designing nanoparticles to deliver drugs and also for diagnostic applications. And I also teach the undergraduate course, Nanomedicine and Drug Delivery, and that also has a lab component as well. So
Fantastic.
Nice to meet you all.
Thanks for being here, Dr. Chung. Dr. Mousavi.
Hi everyone, I'm Maral Mousavi. I'm also a STEM professor in the Department of Biomedical Engineering. Excited to be here to talk to you guys about our work in BME in general. My research focuses on developing point-of-care diagnostics in medical testing. So we want to keep that big theme of how do we make healthcare affordable and accessible for everybody. So we think of creative ways to design devices that are inexpensive but functional. I also teach a class so specifically focused on medical testing and diagnostics, which is a higher level undergrad class.
Thank you very much. Dr. Shen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Keyue SHen, and I'm an assistant professor in the BME department as well. So my research, I have a lab in the department, and then my research is focused on studying the disease and therapies at the cellular level. And our approach is to create some sort of in vitro outside the body kind of models of the cell and tissue environments. And then we mainly work on the cancer and also the stem cell therapies.
All right, thank you. And last but certainly not least, Dr. Yen.
Hello, everyone. My name is Eun. I'm an associate professor in the BME department. I work on something that all of you have been literally exposed to roughly 19 years ago, and that is ultrasound. So when you were in utero, you had your first exposure to BME, and that was my area of research. I don't image fetuses, but I do. My focus is on cardiovascular imaging. My lab focuses on a lot of different areas within ultrasound, from building the transducer, the probe that you put onto the patient, to the system, which acquires the data and produces the image. And so, again, our focus has been lately on cardiovascular applications. I also teach the intro to BME class. So if you do decide to come to USC, you'll probably see me. And I also hope to see you guys as well.
All right. So for all of you as guests, just a reminder to our faculty, these are all prospective students that have joined us today. The grand majority of them are seniors in high school, and they're trying to decide whether they'd like to apply to USC, and they're thinking about biomedical engineering. There's also a few students in the audience that are transfer students. They're at other either community colleges or other universities that are thinking about applying. All prospective undergraduates, and they haven't yet either applied or thought they're thinking about it. So let's not mess it up. Let's really show them what we got. The first question I have for you all I'm going to put the spotlight on to Dr. Yen. Maybe he can kick it off for us because he teaches the introduction to biomedical engineering. It sounds like a simple question, Dr. Yen, but what the heck is biomedical engineering? I know that's a complex, complicated answer, so I'm going to hand it over to you to help everybody understand what biomedical engineering is.
Yeah, sure. So BME, I think, is a very broad field and encompasses quite a breadth of different areas, as you can already imagine. As you know, with Dr. Chung, Shen, and Mousavi, and myself, we've all described very different areas. But I think the overarching theme in all of this is that we aim to improve human health. We're using engineering principles to improve and also understand human health as well. I think something that does get lost in the shuffle a little bit is the understanding part. There's still quite a bit that we don't understand about the human body, and especially when things go wrong, when there's disease like cancer, as an example. And so we use, again, these engineering principles to help us understand that, and then also help us to then design appropriate therapies to treat those different conditions. I also like to emphasize in my class that BME still is engineering. So when we say biomedical engineering, engineering is the noun, biomedical is the adjective. So engineering is the emphasis, is what I'm getting at. And so we still use very important fundamental engineering principles, but our application is in the biomedical areas. So that's sort of my take on it.
Any other thoughts or anything else you all want to add on to that?
I think Jesse did a really good job. But I think the one thing is just that we, instead of the sciences, which is a little bit more discovery of things that exist, we are developing and applying and making oftentimes. And so that's the engineering part. And as Jesse mentioned, it's in that biomedical context. Yeah.
Absolutely. So not things that exist, but things that don't, creating that technology and things related to the human body. A slight follow-up question. There are so many different similar sounding programs at other universities. I mean, we can go on. We have biomedical engineering. Sometimes universities have bioengineering. Sometimes they have a really technical biology class. There's other majors in the sciences like quantitative biology. There's things that really a lot of students get excited about with like neuroscience. Basically, we have students that are interested in lots of these areas related to the health sciences. How does biomedical engineering differ from some of these other programs that maybe they've heard about? And of course, embedded into this that everybody wants to know is what's the best one? What's the best program? Well, obviously biomedical is, but why is it?
I guess I can speak about that. I've seen a lot of different titles and programs, bioengineering and biomedical engineering. I think from my perspective, they're kind of identical with the exception that biomedical engineering is more inclusive. So you typically have a wide range of options in biomedical engineering departments. And when you choose your major, especially at the high school level, you kind of have very vague ideas of what you really want to do. So when you actually take the classes, you do some lab experiences, you kind of learn a little bit more about what you really like to do. And I think having the options down the road to decide, maybe you want to be more theoretical, maybe you want to do more hands-on work. I think biomedical engineering specifically will give you a wide range of options. As you just heard from different research areas, we work on like problems from like chemical engineering related towards more biology focused. And actually the faculty come from all different kinds of backgrounds, from sciences to engineering. So biomedical engineering is inclusive of a lot of different areas, and the departments are typically a little bit larger. You have a lot more options for exposure to different areas. So that kind of my take on it is you have a lot more options in BME.
That's great. Dr. Shen?
I think I can add a little bit on that. So I think biomedical engineering and then Department of Bioengineering, in a lot of cases, are actually quite interchangeable in its meaning. While the other ones you mentioned earlier is a little bit different. So as Maral has summarized very well, so it's basically it's a very interdisciplinary area. So by BME, I think it's kind of at the intersection of the medicine, biology, and engineering. So each individual program can have a little bit more tilt toward any of the three kind of like the disciplines. So sometimes there's a more engineering component, sometimes there's a more medicine, sometimes there's more biology. So, but overall, it's a kind of like a very nice mixture of many different disciplines. And then the BME program itself is also kind of very well, I would say, designed or situated in the place that if you want to do medicine, we also have pre-med kind of like tracks in the program, and a lot of students are kind of like studying for the purpose of going into practice medicine in the future. So that's another kind of thing to take note of.
Yes, definitely. I think that transitions quite well to my next question to talk about the curriculum. Maybe we can start with an overview. What types of classes, what's the arc that a student would take in the undergraduate curriculum? How would they start? What's the middle? How would it end? And I know that there are a number of different emphases, and maybe we can help our audience understand what those different emphases are, and not to add too much into a single question, but if you all want to jump in with examples of classes that you teach, I think one time something that our students are really interested in is what's a college class like? What's a biomedical engineering class like? You know, they have maybe just a high school background to go back on. They've taken a biology class in high school, but what's it going to be like? So I loaded that question up. I'm sorry, but let's talk a little bit about curriculum.
Sure, I'll go ahead and start since I teach the intro class. So
Yeah.
I guess that's a good place to start. So my class is Intro to BME. We try to cover as much of BME as we can. Again, it is only 15 weeks, so that's quite a bit of a challenge. At the same time, as I mentioned before, BME still relies on very fundamental engineering principles but the application is in biology or medicine. And so in our class, we use conservation principles. And so by conservation, I mean ideas like conservation of mass. So we know that no matter what we do, we can't create or destroy mass. Conservation of charge, conservation of momentum. And so we use these sort of fundamental science ideas, but these are ideas from science, but they are fundamental to chemical engineering, electrical engineering, mechanical engineering. And so we go over these ideas and we see how these ideas are applied. And this also ties in nicely with Paul's other question about the emphases. So the emphases are the cellular molecular, the electrical and the mechanical, and those are actually the units that we kind of go over in 101. We have a mass unit, which is tied to the cellular and molecular. We have a charge unit, which is tied to the electrical, and then we do some on momentum, which is related to the mechanical emphasis. Beyond 101, I think in second year, you'll take a class on neural engineering, on computer modeling of biomedical systems. Junior year is medical electronics and some something like Dr. Shen's class in nano medicine, which he could probably talk more about than I could. And then in your senior year, there is a capstone class where you are expected to kind of integrate all that you've learned into building a device or some sort of solution to a real world medical problem. So that's kind of an overall view. I think my colleagues could probably fill in the gaps a little bit more.
The only thing I wanted to mention in addition to that is that there are these tracks that we have in our department. So there's a general biomedical engineering, I guess, track. I think that's like more of the default one, and the majority of the students just do the BME general track. But then if you want a bit more of an emphasis, there's molecular cellular engineering under biomedical engineering. So you're still getting the BME degree. It just will say that you have an emphasis in something. And then there's mechanical engineering and electrical engineering as well. And there's other types of minors that you can pick up, of course. But based on that track, if you wanted to, you just have more electives that are you usually actually have a panel of electives, and you can choose within those within that panel which one you want to take that fits that emphasis.
Yeah, I also wanted to add that there are some classes that are shared among all engineering students that you would typically take in your year 1 and year 2, like engineering math or basic chemistry, biology, laboratories. So these are often offered by specific departments, but pretty much all the engineering students kind of take those classes as first years and second years. And so you'd be taking some of those that are in specific to biomedical engineering, but they're required for you to get a degree in engineering as well.
I want to note to our audience, I just put a link into the chat for all of you to check it out so you can see what they've been speaking about and help you get more of a visual of it. And oftentimes when we talk about all of these different opportunities and options and emphases and course selections, it can sometimes get a little bit stressful for you as a student. It's like, which one do I need to pick? When do I need to pick? How do I pick this? And I think you all should know one thing. This is good for you. These are options, and it has nothing to do with right now. And you don't even need to worry about it on the application. You just put on the application, it's going to say biomedical engineering, any emphasis. So don't even worry about that. So we removed those things from the application from years past. And all you need to do is basically go through this process. You're going to go into Dr. Yen's Intro to Biomedical Engineering class, where it starts to unravel before you. You start to gain experiences, you gain exposure, you start to realize what you like and what you don't like. And to be quite honest with you, you start to navigate in those particular areas. So for the time being, what I really want you to think about is that everything here is an option and you don't need to worry too much about it. And you have lots of opportunities in your future. So that's good. Next question I want to get into, can we talk a little bit about, colleges often talk about theory versus hands-on work. Can you describe what is theory, what is hands-on inside of biomedical engineering, and what will students end up doing? Anyone?
I guess for any work that you do, there is a theory component, because you start learning about the principles that are utilized for that specific area of work. And then once you learn those, depending on the nature of work, some work is heavily experimental, like studying a biological system, and you'd be in the lab working with cells, working with different types of ways to do measurements. But some work is actually theoretical, meaning that you're creating a model, or you're looking at some sort of data processing, or you have some images that you're doing some sort of post-processing on. And that becomes a little bit more kind of theoretical, meaning that you're not really in the lab making measurements, but you're still doing science and you're still doing intellectual work. And that kind of like what you'd be doing is a little bit dependent on the area of research that you'd be in.
Great. Let's pivot a little bit and talk a little bit about research. You've all mentioned a little bit of your research area, but we can talk a little bit more about what is the research going on in the department, and maybe we can go into a little more detail specifically about your areas. Who would like to start this off?
So I can probably talk a little bit about that. So there are very diverse areas of research in the department. So the whole BME department, Jesse can probably correct me, but there are imaging tracks, and then device tracks, and then neuro track, and then also the cellular molecular track. Then, so each of the direction can have different focus. Some of them are more focused on like working with a computer and the image analysis, and some of them are more focused on like device fabrication, characterization, and then use them for like imaging and then probing purposes. And then some of our labs are focused on creating tools on the micro and nano levels to directly interact with the cells. So the flavor could be very different across the whole department. In terms of my own lab research, we are using a lot of the kind of micro engineering tools, like including those techniques used in the microelectronics that you can do microfabrication, making devices, or we can use those some sort of mechanical engineering, like micro machining techniques or 3D printing technologies to create devices that we can mimic some biological process at the cellular level, and then to see how, like, say, cancer cells interact with the other normal cells, and then that can change their behaviors and the progression of the cancer, and how we can, say, like, promote the immune cell activities in the tumor to kill the cancer cells. So that's just kind of like a rough example. I think my other colleagues can add to that.
So in my lab, we're quite hands-on as well, meaning that to get our work done, we're always in the lab, kind of coming up with ideas for doing work. But specifically, one of the areas that we work on is using ubiquitous materials to create diagnostic devices that are low cost. All of you have exposure to paper and yarn or fabric as the garments that you put on or paper that you write on. And we actually use these materials to develop diagnostic devices that are inexpensive. So if you've ever gotten coffee or maybe some other drinks on your notebooks or on your books, you see that starts to seep in and then it stains, meaning that you now have a material that can transport fluids around for you, but it can also hold on to reagents and sensing elements for you. So we take on this concept and then use these materials to then create interesting medical devices that then can actually be printed using an office printer. We actually use an old Xerox office printer for prototyping our sensors, and we actually picked it up off of Craigslist somewhere. So you can print the entire fabrication process. You can print your entire devices in sheets at a really low cost. So it's a little bit more of kind of creative thinking and then addressing medical problems that way. But it's a little bit more hands-on. But there are so many other interesting areas of medical device development within our department.
Yeah, I can add on a little bit more. For our lab, we do nanomedicine, as I was mentioning earlier. And if you've had your COVID vaccines, and if it's Moderna or the Pfizer BioNTech, it's actually a very similar platform to the things that we design in our lab. And so we're packaging things inside of these nanoparticles, we're engineering them, and we're hoping to have them target a very specific area in the body that has disease and not other places, so that it can not have side effects as well. And so we do that not only in the cancer context, but also cardiovascular and kidney. And we're just exploring different materials as well for nanoparticle development, and using different types of models from in vitro, things that Dr. Shen has mentioned, up to animal models, and hopefully towards clinical trials. So that's one part of the research and in the department. And I think just more broadly, there's more imaging, and I think maybe Jesse can talk a little bit more about that. But there are kind of large emphases like biomaterials and cellular and tissue engineering. And there's also diagnostics, and that can be related to imaging as well. And then there's also neural applications. That's a big emphasis in our department as well. Am I missing any other? I feel like there's one more. Anyone else?
The biosystems systems physiology group. So that group will do things like they will model, for example, if you're interested in finding out or determining what is the optimal dosage regimen for a cancer drug. So understanding how a cancer drug might distribute throughout the body, how it might attack the tumor, and how much of a drug should you give the patient, and when should you give it, and understanding things like that is based on developing the what are called pharmacokinetic models. So understanding how the drug moves throughout the body, how it gets metabolized, how it gets cleared out, to again better optimize therapies with these drugs. A couple other things, just quickly. Again, Eun Ji mentioned this a little bit about the neural group. We have a very what or somewhat large group of people who do neural engineering. These people are working on various neural-related topics, such as looking at retinal prosthesis. So this is basically restoring vision to the blind. There's another professor working on a hippocampal prosthesis. So the hippocampus is a part of your brain that is responsible for transferring or converting short-term memory into long-term memory. So Professor Berger is developing this implant basically to replace or bypass the hippocampus, so to enable patients who have lost memory capability to then recover that. So a lot of interesting things happening in the neural group that we don't have a neural person here, but there's quite a bit going on there as well.
And something that we all know, but I know a lot of our students will ask this, is as undergraduates, can they get involved in this research? And do you have undergraduates working with you?
I have quite a few. So if you go to my website, you can see a lot of past alumni in the lab, and then also current undergrad members. I actually take a lot of freshmen, kind of like undergrads. So don't worry about when to reach out, what's the best time. I mean, as soon as you get to USC, you can reach out to different professors. Some people might prefer more senior students, and then my lab, I definitely like people coming early, and then because there are a lot of skills that need time to mature, and then you need to learn it over and then practice. So it worked out pretty well. I have one student that stayed with me for quite a long time from the freshman year, and then he went on to become an MD PhD student in UPenn. And then I have a couple other students, they went on to kind of PhD program later, also joined pretty early in the lab. So a lot of students also had actually publications, co-authored publications, and then so one student even had the first authored publication from the lab.
Yeah, I also have a lot of students in my lab.
Yeah. Short answer is I think everybody does. Undergrads are definitely involved in research, and you have those opportunities to get engaged. We have a number of different research fellowships and scholarships through our scholarship process. And also students can actually don't have to be involved in a formal program. Just getting to know your faculty is a great way to get involved in research if that's something that's of interest to you. I want to ask one more question. So for the rest of our audience, get your questions ready. We can open up that Q&A function. And I'm going to have you start typing them in now. So hit the Q&A, and then faculty, I'll ask that we just wait. We'll let the things upvote themselves. And as you get your questions in, you upvote those questions. I will go through those questions and distribute them to you as we go. So students out there, ask your questions, upvote the ones you want to see. We'll go through as many as we possibly can, working our way down and have a good discussion about them. My last question to our faculty before we get into the Q&A is, where do your students end up going? Obviously, after their undergraduate years, there are lots of things that they end up going in to do. They go into industry, they go into graduate school, they go to medical school. Just anecdotally, where do you know your past students have gone?
Yeah, my students have gone to all of those listed. They've gone to Abbott, Medtronic, in terms of industry, and other places that are similar to that. Can't even list all of them. They've gone to medical school on the East Coast, here on the West Coast. They've gone on to get their PhDs here at USC or other places throughout the nation. Some have gone on to places in Europe and have gone into master's program, public policy. So I think and some people have also gone into consulting as well. So I think it's just, it just tells you the diversity in terms of what biomedical engineering as a degree can offer you. And it can allow you to go into more traditional tracks, like the research track, the PhD track, or the MD track. Oh, I also have a student that went into dental school as well, or you can go into more like business or consulting or other types of areas that you're interested in, like the public policy student. So I think as you're finding out what's right for you through USC, then you have, the major can go in multiple directions as you see fit.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I've had students in all of those areas that Eun Ji mentioned. I would also say that I've had students go on to law school. They become patent attorneys. I have mixed feelings about that, but they seem to be enjoying that.
You don't like them becoming lawyers?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, other students have gone into healthcare consulting. Some students go into regulatory affairs. So this is dealing with, you're maybe working for a medical device company and you're in charge of basically shepherding the technology through the FDA approval process. So that is something that is also very lucrative and also I think probably very rewarding if you can help a company get a device into the marketplace and patients are using it and it's improving their health. I would imagine that that's also a really fascinating career.
Very cool. Very cool. Michael is in the background and he put a note to the chat to everybody. Yes, these questions, let's keep them focused on the discipline, on the curriculum, things that our faculty can help us better understand. If you have questions related to admission or the application process, I'm going to ask you to attend one of our admission information sessions. We hold 2 per week for freshmen. We hold 1 on Fridays for transfer students, and we can get into detail on those questions and not waste our faculty time related to that. So we're going to try to just stick to these questions related to biomedical engineering today. So thank you for your questions. Keep them coming and make sure you don't forget to keep upvoting the questions that you want to see answered. And we're going to start going through these questions right now. Samantha has got the most votes. So Samantha Reyes, congratulations. You're the winner with the most votes of all of the questions come out so far. How can you use biomedical engineering as a stepping stone to becoming a medical doctor? Just for me to kick it off for you all, you may have heard that in these outcomes, students go to medical school. So biomedical engineering as an undergraduate discipline is a perfect step. It's a perfect preparatory guide pathway to medical school. A lot of our students are interested in medical school. I believe that the majority, if not all, of the pre-med prerequisites are built into the undergraduate curriculum. So it's not about taking more because you're still taking those biology and chemistry level classes and ready to go. And a lot of our students do that. Do you all want to jump into this as far as your experience of students going on to medical school and what they end up doing?
I currently have 3 undergrad students that are on pre-med track. They specifically focus on diagnostics to strengthen their application to medical school. So medical school application is very competitive, and having that research edge usually helps you get into competitive programs. But as you mentioned, it's the perfect stepping stone for being on the pre-med track.
I'll also add when you mentioned competitive, that's something that a lot of students worry about. And I think it's something that our biomedical engineering students don't really worry about, because when you're just a biology major, students end up worrying about they got to get straight A's. Biomedical engineers get into medical school without straight A's. It's deemed as a much more rigorous curriculum, and medical schools like to see biomedical engineers in their curriculum because they have the same level of training, but they also have the application-based learning, that hands-on work, a little bit more of that problem-solving technique, the engineering skill set that a basic science student won't necessarily have. So keep that in mind, that this is a good opportunity for you all. Winston has, I'm sorry, yes.
Sorry.
Angie.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that, to go into medical school, you just have to take the pre-med courses, and you really can do that with any major. I think what BME offers is that you're doing it simultaneously, and you're, adding on to your knowledge with biomedical related curriculum just more broadly. And I do agree that the BME major in and itself is competitive to get into. So then, overall, I think you're in a great place for, if your trajectory wants to go into medical school, in terms of having a great and rigorous background, as Paul was saying. Yeah.
Great. Thank you very much. Winston has the next question, which is, what is the average, I think it's first and second year class sizes is what he's trying to get at. And our classes instructed by faculty or TAs. All of your classes are taught by faculty. you're meeting 4 of them right now, but all classes are taught by faculty. Of course, TAs are involved in the academic experience. Sometimes they'll lead labs or discussion sections, but all of your classes in engineering at USC will always be taught by faculty. Average class size across the university is 26, but these faculty can tell you specifically their class sizes right now, of course, as they're teaching. Jesse, your intro class right now, what are we looking at?
Right now, I'm at 35, and generally I try to aim for about that number, 30 to 35.
Yeah, and that's your first biomedical engineering class in your first year with Dr. Eun. He's going to be there. Other class sizes for all of you?
Yeah, my class size, it's a lab and it's around 18 to 20 usually. And my TA helps out with the lab portion, but all the lectures are with me.
Yeah, mine is
So
similar.
I-
Yeah, 15.
About 15.
Yeah, my class is around 20, usually a little bit over 20. It's a mostly lecture-based class, but it's elective, so like it's mostly students interested in the topic.
Right.
It's called Introduction kind of to Engineering in Medicine.
That's great. Thank you very much. And Dr. Mousavi, can you hit the done button on Winston's question in the Q&A? Because I don't have access to that. Thank you. Anya asked the next question. Do you offer internships starting freshman year? No, we don't offer internships, but companies do. And I think that's what you really want to get at. I know I'm splitting hairs with the way you asked the question, but you'll have the opportunity to intern with companies as early as the summer after your first year. We have hundreds and hundreds of companies coming to recruit students of all majors, and specifically biomedical engineering majors have those options as well. The companies that we talked about before, we talked about Abbott, we talked about Baxter, Amgen, we talked about all these different types of companies that are out there, Johnson & Johnson, pharmaceutical companies, med tech companies, healthcare consulting companies, all of them look for interns. And you can do that as early as your first year. And that's what's important, is that we have our own career connections office with staff devoted to bringing these employers onto campus to help you do that. And there's also a lot of other resources inside of biomedical engineering. Knowing your students inside of, for example, the Associated Students of Biomedical Engineering, they hold a number of different corporate events and luncheons and sometimes dinner events where you get to know these people. Engaging in your community, engaging with the different student organizations and our faculty services, there's so much for you. That said, no one's ever going to hand you an internship. No one's going to ever knock on your dorm room and say, it's time for your job. But so going to these events, getting your resume critiqued by us, helping you do the mock interviews, that's what's there for you. And students are getting more and more opportunities earlier in their college career. Anyone want to jump in on that anymore? I may have missed or good. Okay. Nicole gets the next question, which is, what would you say was your biggest challenge while pursuing BME? So Nicole, these are the faculty in the department. They're not alumni necessarily. Some of them, they probably took different types of undergraduate courses. So I'm going to alter your question a little bit, which is maybe what do your students find challenging? I'm going to kind of point this at Dr. Eun. We are what, 6-8 weeks into the semester right now. What in their first year, what have they been like? Oh my God, I have no idea what's happening. Or what were some of their surprises that in your class in specific related to the discipline?
I think at least, I mean, I could answer this for myself because
Yeah, sure.
I have a BME undergraduate degree.
Sure.
And, you know, I think also my students in 101 are also coming to grips with this too. It's just the breadth of the field because you have biomechanics, you have medical devices, you have tissue engineering, you have nanomedicine. So it's just so broad that it's really hard to make sense of it all. And so I think that's what I certainly struggled with as an undergraduate. And I certainly think that some of my students are also struggling with that. However, I try to specifically address that issue by the way I teach. And this, again, as I mentioned before, we go through these themes of conservation principles, which are prevalent throughout all of engineering, not just BME, all of engineering. And so if we can at least start to look at BME through the lens of these conservation principles, things like biomechanics and neural engineering will begin to make much more sense. And you can more easily see the connections between those areas. And you can then begin to make new connections between different areas that other people haven't been able to see before. So I try to come from it with this approach of there's this one theme of conservation, these conservation principles, and we can apply this theme to all of these areas to help us make sense of what is biomechanics, what is tissue engineering, what are medical devices. And so I think that kind of helps in kind of, again, making sense of the broadness of the field and how sometimes the areas may not seem very related, but when in fact, they do have a lot of connections there.
Thank you. That was great. Ayantu asked a question. He had two questions that I want to combine because I have a feeling, Ayantu, these are related. So I'm going to make an assumption here and see if we can tie this together. Can you double major in biomedical engineering and something else within or outside the School of Engineering? And then later, he also asked, or earlier, how applicable is computer science in biomedical engineering? So I have a feeling he's wondering, can you do computer science and biomedical engineering? Which is why I'm combining this. I'm going to add a lot of elements to this. I think some people right now coming out of high school, they're thinking they're hearing computer science is what you have to study, but maybe they have an interest in biomedical. So they're hoping, well, can I do this for biomedical engineering? How do we help them understand these options inside of biomedical engineering? And also more specifically, double majoring inside of engineering, not a good idea. You're doing a lot of extra work. Let's find something to start with, and you can expand upon that later. I'll jump in on the back end with other stuff that related to double majors and minors, but let's talk a little bit about computer science, programming. What should students be worried about, or what are the options?
I think if you're interested in computer science, definitely pursue computer science, right? And if you're interested in biomedical engineering, but maybe possibly doing some computational research, you can pursue that alongside of a biomedical engineering degree and doing, theory and computational analyses for something related to biomedical engineering. I think there are definitely, within the BME curriculum, you're going to be learning some MATLAB and other types of, I guess, just engineering tools that are often used. But I think programming, and there's a little bit of programming that's embedded in the curriculum as well. So you get like the basics of that, but I don't think that's the same thing as like a double major in computer science or even a minor in computer science. So I think there's definitely opportunities to do research that is related to computation driven research in BME. But I think that's the best that I can answer it at this point. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In your experience, are students disadvantaged by not having a computer science degree when they leave your undergraduate program?
I guess it ultimately depends on their goals. So yeah. I didn't really need that much programming. I do a little bit of it here and there for, as needed, and we can pick up on those skills. But I didn't need a formal training for the type of things that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, so you are always welcome to add programming classes into your curriculum, and these opportunities, whether they be technical electives or just pure electives, you have that opportunity. And even going so bold as you want to do a minor curricular track, we call them minors, you can do that in computer science. If you want to be so bold and get a second bachelor's degree, you can, but to be frank, you really probably don't want to do that. And that probably just means you're having a hard time deciding between different programs. And it really is, do you want to study computer science or do you want to study biomedical engineering? What sounds more interesting to you? Because there's opportunities across the board of where you want to go. And think about like, what's all the hard work you want to do in college? Is it going to be programming, or is it going to be the stuff that you've been hearing these faculty talk about? Not to say one is better than the other, but really think about that. And also go listen to the computer science faculty roundtable session. We have a recording up on the same webpage that you register for this on, and listen to what they're doing. Which one sounds cooler? Which one do you think you want to spend all of your hard nights in college working on? That's really it. What sounds the most interesting to you? When you think about double majoring, or sorry, Jesse, go ahead.
I was just going to say BME is cooler.
Oh, it's cooler, right? It's definitely, absolutely. We're in the BME session. BME is cooler for certain. Absolutely. But if you're thinking about double majors or minors or other kind of other academic opportunities to couple with biomedical engineering, I would encourage you, the school would encourage you to think as broad as you can and maybe not be so technically focused. You have these opportunities outside of the school, whether that be something that you're interested in like theater or dance or political science or international relations, or if you want to go more on the STEM route, there's other sciences or neuroscience, things like that, that maybe you have an interest in and how you want to couple it. You want to kind of like amp up or plus up that area of your undergraduate area. You can. Minors are a great way to do that. Double majors are there too, but that's just more work and you will spend more time in college for your undergraduate degree. And maybe that's not something you want to do. So there's lots of options. How soon can we choose a specialty track? As soon as you like. But realize that it's just course selection and students will choose a track and then choose not to be in that track and move at a later point. It's just kind of as you go. So don't lock yourself into a timeline. No one really does. It's all about advisement, individual course advisement. The academic advisors inside of biomedical engineering will be working with you along with your relationships with faculty to help you go about what you like and what you don't like as you move through the program. I think that's the same question that Saban just asked about changing between focus programs. So I get to mark that off. What high school requirements are needed to be accepted in the biomedical engineering course? I'm going to let Michael answer that question, Samantha, because that's an admission question. And we're going to push you to our admissions information session. And out of high school, Samantha, this next question, what are the courses that help you stand out the most when it comes to that's again an application question. I'm going to put you to our session. What would the best emphasis to take if I were interested in myoelectric prostheses? Can you do a hybrid of both mechanical and electrical BME? They want to be so specific. They only want work in that one thing. So how do we advise?
I guess you still have to take all the general classes. But if you want to then develop a more specific research area, you always have these elective classes that you can take. And then you can take a few like specific classes from mechanical engineering or like more on electrical engineering side. But we actually do have faculty with emphasis on electrical and mechanical measurements. And for you, it may be an opportunity to actually jump on the research track a little bit soon and then kind of learn through research as well. It doesn't necessarily have to be through specific courses that you can take. So it becomes at some point, it's so specific that it becomes a little bit more of a specialty area versus a broad area of biomedical engineering.
Your undergraduate courses are not necessarily the end of your educational path. And I think that what you're really doing is you're beginning to build your foundation. And it's great that you have such a great goal of what you want to work on. And I would say, yeah, hey, cool, keep going in that direction. But I'll also tell you that a lot of students come in with a very specific thought in mind. And as they start taking classes, that thought evolves, changes, or moves entirely out of their head. And as they go through coursework, the one thing they start to realize, although it's hard to believe from a high school perspective or from the outside looking into college, there aren't concrete pipelines for a specific endpoint. I often give this example. It's probably helpful to give it to you now to be more objective about it. If we remove this from biomedical in general and you think about, I want to work at SpaceX because I love SpaceX and space stuff. There's not one major that works at SpaceX. Every problem that you end up working on, specifically in health-related fields, are multidisciplinary, and that involve lots of different people with lots of different backgrounds. And so it will involve electrical engineers, pure electrical engineers in those prostheses. It will involve mechanical engineers, it will involve biomedical engineers, it will involve people that have studied in between all these different areas, it will involve material engineers down the road at some point when you get to end-use applications. So recognize that. Pick the thing that sounds, I keep going back to this, what sounds cool, what sounds interesting to you, and go in that element. And that's also why you don't actually have to have an emphasis, to repeat what Dr. Chung was talking about in the beginning of our session, that it's not like you're picking a path. You have lots of opportunities and it is fluid, and they aren't necessarily academic silos that you're stuck in. So recognize lots of opportunities, and flexibility is key.
I also want to add that the students can take graduate level classes as well, like towards their senior year as potential elective classes. And that may be another opportunity for specialization.
Sure. Thank you. Addie Mame, if I have your name wrong, or name correct, I hope I did, is asking, what are the key differences between being a biomedical engineer and either a biology or health sciences major on the pre-med track? Is one more beneficial than the other? Well, I think that goes back a little bit to what was referred to earlier on the differences between science and engineering. And I don't know if we can go into more detail on that, because we did already answer, we did talk about that, but do you all want to, what's more beneficial is what's beneficial to you. Engineering is application-based learning. You build stuff, you break stuff, you're problem solvers.
I I guess I wanted to add that when you start medical school, you of course cover some of the basics, but every tool that you're going to be using in the process of like diagnosing the patient or understanding what's going on, you will cover the theory and design principles and how to get information from it in a biomedical engineering major. So you have very little surprises down the road when you actually are doing a biomedical engineering degree for further on, like continuing in the medical school route. So you do have that advantage that, you know, nothing catches you by surprise because you've already seen it or learned the theory of it in one of your courses.
Alexandra, your question is an admission question, but we don't have an exact number on that. The programs at the Viterbi School of Engineering are not impacted. We don't have a set number of admitted students every single year. It varies based on who applies, it changes. We're always seeking to enroll for biomedical engineering. No, I should say always, and typically are seeking to enroll probably about 50 or 60, but it really depends on the year. But that's what we're seeking to enroll. That's not the admit rate because that's just who's coming in. So to give you a sense of the scale of the program, it's a program that is focused on your success in small. Jordan is asking, can you elaborate more on the Capstone project?
Yeah, sure. So I don't teach a class, but I have attended some of their presentations. So the Capstone class is, I think, more of a devices type class or project. So you're building some sort of medical device. Some examples of projects that I can recall off the top of my head are, one is something like a device that will monitor whether or not a patient is taking their prescribed drugs or not. And so they monitor the mass of the pill containers, and it will alert the doctor, letting the doctor know that the patient didn't take the drug when they were supposed to. Another one is, I think it was like a knee rehabilitation device to measure, I don't know if I can demonstrate it, but it would measure if you were trying to extend your leg out. So if you had your knee bent and then you were extending your leg out, it would measure the amount of force that you had to exert against this rigid plate to measure the strength of your leg. Another one was another project. This was a number of years ago, but one of my undergraduates was looking at monitoring the motion of a baby. So they put these sensors on a newborn. I can't remember the exact clinical problem, but they would put these sensors on the newborn and monitor and try to quantify the motion of the baby. And that was, I think, again, low motion would indicate something was wrong, and high motion would indicate something that was normal. Most of these projects involve, again, many things that you have learned throughout your 4 years. So it generally involves some kind of programming. You're probably going to use or develop your own medical electronics. There's also a mechanical component in the undergraduate lab. There are 3D printers. You can build different kinds of jigs and other kind of test fixtures. So you're kind of combining all of that to solve this medical problem. Another thing that's also been added to this course, or that can be added to this course, is the regulatory component. So if you were to develop this device, if you wanted to turn it into a product, you would get exposed, or you would learn about the regulatory process, and then you would then apply that knowledge to your particular device or project. So you said, okay, well, this is my device. This device is either, a class 1, class 2, or class 3 device, and it would need these kinds of tests. The FDA would want to know this kind of data, and that sort of thing. So it kind of gives you a very real world experience. And these problems or these project topics are given to the instructor, Dr. Merrick, by doctors. So he's not making these up out of nowhere. These are real problems that he finds, and the students get to work on them.
Very cool. Thank you. Kavya is asking about combined undergraduate graduate degree programs. Yeah, we have our progressive degree program. That's an option for undergraduate students. Should you wish to continue your studies in a graduate program, you can do that in typically an additional year and get your combined undergraduate and graduate degree. You can do that within BME. You can also do that with other programs. So if you have another interest for your graduate degree instead of the engineering school, you can definitely do that. It's not something you apply to now or worry about now. You're eligible to apply to that program once you're a junior at USC. Vishnu is asking about internships and co-ops. Yes, we do offer, no, again, we don't offer, companies are offering internships and they are also offering co-ops. And so that is definitely a possibility should you wish to do that. Denisha is asking, do students get to design their own experiments? And also speaking on cancer devices, are students doing research and conducting their own experimental research?
So in the lab research, I guess, in terms of cancer device, my research is related to that. So in the lab, most of the time, the undergrad student will shadow or kind of work with some undergraduate student in a lab. And then usually over time, when they have more experience, they will usually kind of get offered with some opportunities to work on a smaller set of problems independently. In some cases, I even have students running the project on their own, like from designing all the way to writing papers. So it all depends on how well the progress look like and then how capable the student actually became after kind of a couple of years of training. So yeah, it's all possible.
And this will be the last question. Allison asks, do you have any patents? She's asking, you've done cool research. Have you ever applied for patents?
I'm here very sure. So I have one approved patent, and then I have another one kind of like a provisional. So hopefully that will become some sort of usable, and then some interesting company will be interested.
Yeah, so same for me. We have one that, we're working on the patent. I'm quite new to USC, been here for a couple of years, but we have one. We have a grant to actually commercialize the product. So definitely we're interested in that side of things as well.
Okay, I lied. I have one final question. Dr. Shen, I love the artwork behind you. Are these your kids' drawings, or is this your own personal artwork?
Yeah, that's for my kids.
I love it. I love it. And then Dr. Mousavi, I need to know what the T-Rex joke is behind you, because I've been staring at it this whole time and I can't read it.
It says if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, but the T-Rex cannot clap its hands. So I think it's just funny.
If you're happy and clap your, sorry. I forget.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Very cool. Well, on that note, there's no better note to end on this. For all of you that are out there, thank you so much for joining us in this talk. If you want to attend one of our info sessions on admission, please do so. Michael put some links into the chat. Go to our website. We have them 2 times a week for first-year students, transfer students on Friday afternoons as well. And get your Common App started if you haven't done that as well. admission.usc.edu/Common App. Get that going, add USC, and make sure you list biomedical engineering as your first choice major on the application in order to be considered for that. The application deadline is rapidly approaching. We are almost 5 weeks away from that application deadline. So please do so as quickly as you possibly can. Start working on that. Join our session to ask those other questions related to the application. We're happy to do so. You can call us if you have further questions at 213-600-9919. You can actually call or text us, or you can email us at vadmit@usc.edu whenever you like. We'll get back to you usually within a business day. My final note is a big thank you to all of our faculty for being here. Dr. Shen, Dr. Yen, Dr. Mousavi, and Dr. Chung, thank you so much for taking time to speak to our prospective students. I figured out why you couldn't get in as a panelist. It's our fault. I apologize. I figured out the answer. It's never going to happen again, but it has to do with email addresses versus email aliases, because your account is your email, but we use your alias when we emailed you. So our fault. We figured it out though. And of course, that doesn't do us any good now, but anyways, apologies. Thank you all. Have a great night. If you miss anything, the recording will be up shortly.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.